March 7th, me, Don in London. My video is all about recovery from addiction to either substance or behaviour. My addictive substance, alcohol, my behaviour could be equally addictive around people, places and things. Collecting, not being able to let go of things, trying to be right with the world, and probably trying to be perfect. And I remember somebody saying to me many years ago now, he was a director of a big company, and he said, "Don, what are you going to do if I let you down, because your standards are so high?" And that was on the back of talking about grief. And I guess I was doing a bit of grief counselling, something I did as part of my job. And I had to think hard about it. I never thought about anybody letting me down. I was more concerned to make sure I did the right thing by others. So how did that translate into my life? Well, being obsessed about delivering the right thing, whatever it happened to be in my personal and work life, and never measuring up to my own standards, I guess. Driven to do well, and so self-obsessed. When I couldn't shut my head down and stop thinking about life, I used to drink, and I drank and drank and drank alcohol, to the point where I was dependent, and then totally dependent. Alcohol had power over me. So these days, with any luck, I'll stay sober a day at a time. And what helps me most in doing this is the fellowship of AA, Alcoholics Anonymous. I can't speak for Alcoholics Anonymous because it's full of unique, authentic people who choose to speak where they will about their recovery. And my videos are no replacement for meetings. Meetings are what you see is what you get. And what you see in a meeting is how people are on the day they attend. So it's not about a cult, or it's not about saying this is the right path and this is the only way to be sober. The reason for the meetings: every single person has a point of view, every single person has experience, strength and hope, which they share when it's appropriate for them to do. And it's not all about happiness, because we have a 12-step program. It's about how to deal with the hardship we find in recovery. That is normal life, difficult always for everyone. So sometimes it's great and we hear something spiritual about how to live in reality, and sometimes it's awful because awful things happen to good people or even bad people. But something I've found out in recovery is, even when people are doing their worst, or what feels like their worst, to us, it's the best they can do with what they've got inside them at that moment. So sometimes we meet angry, happy, sad, joyful people as they are today. And it's how we live and respond with people today, how we are interdependent with them, which makes life work. So AA meetings, what you see is what you get. You'll get anything happening on a day-to-day basis. No 2 days the same. You might hear people share the same message day after day after day, but they're there, and they're sober, and they have something to say. And I always seem to have something to say. So these videos, not AA, but I speak about AA a lot. So I don't represent it, is really what I'm saying. Having said that, I do use the literature of AA because it helps me focus on what I can do with my life, free with choices, not stuck in the obsession of alcohol. And not only literature from AA, but also literature like this, the little red book of AA, written some time ago, which explains what the 12 steps are. And I'm going to explain one of those a little bit more, step 3, in a few moments. So, what is AA? I'll share the AA preamble. It's a good starting point. It tells us what AA is. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength and hope with each other, that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. So the common problem is we are alcoholics, couldn't stop drinking, had no way out, and we came into fellowship. And it's about solving the common problem, which is to be in recovery one day at a time. So what you see in AA is what you get in AA on any particular day. Some people are riveting and happy, or riveting and sad, but we're learning from them how they feel about life today. So it's a day program, and there is no ending. You can leave or join at any time, and there are no obligations. It's up to you to decide what you want to do. It goes on to say, the only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. So in other words, each meeting looks after itself, pays its rent, pays for its tea and coffee and biscuits, and some literature. And anything left over goes towards production of books and keeping the fellowship going. But it always keeps its reserve of money low, so no issues of large amounts of money are ever concerning us. It's a day by day, in the day program, financing itself pretty much day by day. That's how it works. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organisation or institution. It does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. And that's it. AA is not allied with anything. So anybody coming into the fellowship has their own personal beliefs, which they keep, around whatever it is, be it politics, religion, or just how to live life and conduct themselves as they will. And really what we're getting back to with the fellowship is how to feel right and be able to find some faith, courage and confidence to be happy in the day, or as the day is, to find serenity. Now, it doesn't mean it's all jolly and happy, it's reality, and as everybody knows right now, reality is tough. 2011 is proving to be a very tough year for everybody, including me, and I think I've just broken one of my toes again, which is unfortunate because it's the same foot, same toes, which apparently were detached last year, so life isn't always good. But anyway, my head's alright and my heart feels right. Yeah, so everything's pretty hunky-dory, apart from a broken foot again, or toe. I hope it's just a toe. I just hope it's not the metatarsal like before. But it is a bit swollen, but there you go. Anyway, this little red book. March for me is all about step 3. And step 3 reads, made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood him. So that could prove to be a problem if you're not a believer in God. And I know on any given day my experience might make me feel like an agnostic, an atheist or a believer. But I think there are some constants around how we live life. And Gandhi said, God is truth, God is love, and God is, what do you say, truth, love and wisdom. And the wisdom comes from other people. So if God works through people, and that's the greater, higher power that I always tap into, then life seems to be more, I suppose, balanced. It's not all my thoughts. It's not my opinion or belief about things. It's trying to find the truth of now from a loving place and with wisdom, which we gain through being in fellowship. So the God of my understanding, truth, love, wisdom, as Gandhi suggested, works for me. But then, of course, life changes all the time. So faith, courage and confidence to do the next right thing is what seems to work for me. But I can backslide into fearfulness, putting on a brave face, and defending my feelings with my ego, which is very brittle. If you puncture me when I'm angry, I'll be like a wasp or a bee. I'll sting out. But then I try and remember, with a bit of courage, faith and confidence, I don't need to join in arguments or resentments that other people have about life or something I've done. I can just be thoughtful, feel right, apologise, and get on with whatever I'm doing. But do it carefully, so I don't tread on the toes of other people. And I've been reading from this book, Little Red Book, only this week, and I find it quite good. Anyway, it comes on to this, which is really important for me. It says, we do not confuse organised religion with AA. We keep our religion separate and not substitute it for AA philosophy. Honest clergy members expedite spiritual attainment but usually lack understanding of the physical and mental illness of alcoholism. So in other words, keep your faith if you've got it, and you don't need to undermine your religious roots either. But AA is about finding how to deal with our physical and mental illness, which is the alcoholic that we are. AA goes on to say, regardless of such support, join an AA group. So in other words, yes, keep your faith, keep all that is good for you, and try and stop drinking, and come to AA for some extra support around emotional, spiritual matters. Obviously, religious creeds must be dealt with outside of AA. Our concept of God, as we understand him, and our belief in a higher power that can restore spiritual health are all our program requires. We find it most adequate. A great barrier in finding God is impatience. We soon learn spiritual attainment must be earned. Understanding of God constantly enlarges, so we never reach perfection. And for me, I can't define God. I can't define the universe. I'm not a scientist. I'm not a metaphysical giant in any sort of way. I am a person learning how to live life in the moment. And further on, it says here, what I find most interesting, it goes into what we can do. And it says here, most of us have appreciated the perfection of the universe, the animation of living things, the action of the human mind, and the power of love. These things all seem to denote a dynamic life force that surges through everything around us. This force appears to direct all things harmoniously, but irresistibly toward a natural, definite, useful conclusion. I think that's called Darwinism in some places, and religion in other places. So it's how we come to that conclusion that we're all connected in some way, and that nature and providence, if we go with the flow of where life is, rather than trying to always attack it, undermine it, or make it our way, which won't happen, we have a chance of serenity. So in other words, let go and let good things happen, or let go and let God. Be a part of the universe and nature. It is hard to recognise in this life force a power greater than our... Is it hard? See, is it hard to recognise in this life force a power greater than ourselves? Do we not sense its creativity, its creative energy, intelligence and power? Are humans not weak and unimportant apart from God's power? Our founders discovered by trial and error that spiritual contact with God, nature, providence, the universe, or whatever the higher power is that suits you, as long as it's not you, was an alcoholic's only assurance of a normal, sober life. In other words, to be interdependent with what is going on, rather than keep on fighting it. And we don't have to be perfect. Self-preservation urges that we find this companionship and try to understand God's help. In other words, the help around us, normally the wisdom of others, and providence, what happens to come our way. So going with the flow may well work. Understanding comes slowly from practicing the 12 steps, from simple acts such as these. Humbly admitting our alcoholism, desiring to stop drinking and treat our illness in fellowship. Honest effort to lose alcoholic skepticism, faith in God, or just faith in good conscience and nature, and the AA program. Make a decision to live as free as possible of mental binges. In other words, get out of these habits of thinking what is the right thing to do, or going round in circles around a problem. We break the circle by asking for help. Identifying character defects that isolate us from contented sobriety. And for me, obviously, my big three: fear of anything and everything, putting on a brave face, and putting up my ego as a defence mechanism. An ego is brittle in me. It's very thin. You can smash through it with a... You don't need a hammer. You just need a pin. Identifying, yes, the defects. Then submitting these defects in prayer to God for removal. So that serenity prayer. God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change. It's saying, I accept life on life's terms. Courage to change the things I can. Look at my choices as life is. And the wisdom to know the difference is moving forward. honestly living each step to establish a contact with him, or the higher power of your choosing. And then my conscious contact with humans means that I get somewhere in my understanding of life a lot faster than trying to work it all out myself, because it would only be my point of view, not the absolute truth of what's going on around us. Prayer without resentment in our hearts. And, it's like praying, oh dear God, can I have a win on the lottery? Or dear God, can I have the right girl? Or dear God, I've found the right girl but she doesn't seem to notice me. Or dear God, can I have a better job? Or dear God, will the government cut down the gas or petrol prices for me? It doesn't seem to work that way. It's more like, please help me find the right path around all these things that are going on in my life. That's what it is. Please help me. And the help normally comes with other people, and asking the authorities or the companies or whatever it is that I need time to pay me bills, or I need some time to sort myself out. Especially if we're in an alcoholic coming in as a newcomer. Studying the big book for understanding to improve our conscience. In other words, we all have a good conscience, but we get driven mad by alcohol, which takes us to very, very low places, and often may force us into crime, as with drug addiction or anything else. It takes away all good conscience in the end, and there's only one thing we can do, is to keep on using our addictive behaviour and substances. Yes. Understanding how to improve our conscience, forgiving others, it's one of the big ones. We have to start at home though. Self-forgiveness is about loving the person inside us and dealing with the behaviour that we've done, or dealing with our behaviour while under the influence, and dealing with behaviour which is very much like being under the influence of something. And if we can't forgive that, we will not forgive other people. So if there is no self-forgiveness, it's very unlikely, and I think that was the point the director of that company wanted to make. If you don't forgive yourself, how on earth can you forgive me when I make mistakes? And I never saw it that way. But I guess I never thought I had to forgive anybody anything. I just did. It wasn't about them, it was about me. And I think that's called self-obsession. Dealing in right motives, fair treatment. Yeah, right motives and right treatment. Acting with kindness and sanity in our business and home life. In other words, understanding that we are interdependent, which means that not only are we interdependent on other people, but they are interdependent on us. So we turn up when we say we're going to turn up, and we be more ourselves, as we're learning more about ourselves on a daily basis. Acting with kindness and sanity in our business and home life. Being honest and appreciative, helping others, showing tolerance. And then belief in our spiritual potential, willingness to find God in developing it. So belief in our spiritual potential for me is being able to see the truth of today. Understanding how I can love people unconditionally, separating the person from their behaviour often, and finding wisdom from others. Willingness to find God in develop. So willingness for me to find the truth, love and wisdom of now. I'll never define God, far beyond my capacity, as is understanding the universe. I don't have to define, and I don't have to think my idea is right for everyone. It's just what I come to understand. And that's the most important part of it, is the God of your understanding, being unique and authentic in yourself. And if it's not God, it's probably just truth, love and wisdom, or as you choose to believe. I can't express it any other way. It's the universe and how it is. Providence is what it is. The opportunities in where we live. It's not the opportunities by going somewhere else and trying to make it so somewhere else. It's live life as life is. The important element is our willingness to try. Every alcoholic has spiritual possibilities. We must learn to bring them out, to form convictions, and to let them grow. When it is possible, we should take our spouses or close relatives into our confidence as we attempt to carry out this step. And it's let go, let God. Let good Let go, let good things happen. Share. Experience strength and hope. We have found great strength, and help comes to members who have the confidence and cooperation of those close to them. If we have family members that are not cooperative, we must work it out alone, or in fellowship, with the friends that we make along the way, and people we trust. Often people say stick with the winners, and the winners often are the quiet ones, the happy ones, or the ones who are pondering on life and have some wisdom. So we're not looking for firebrands or our next partner in life in fellowship. We're looking for experience, strength and hope which will help us. We should avoid the common mistake of confusing our minds with anxious thoughts regarding the time and manner God will manifest himself to us. Our understanding will come gradually as we earn and develop it. It is uncommon for a member to have a drastic spiritual upheaval. Spiritual awakening or experience comes slowly. It's the truth of now, and we keep on learning more about the truth of now. It does come, however, but so naturally we often fail to recognize it. So the spiritual experience is life itself, every single moment. And the more our heads and our hearts, our feelings, emotions, are about what's happening now, the better it is. Because for years we've probably built up lots of feelings which we've pushed away because they're inconvenient. And I say these days, I'm going to stop here on that problem, because I've gone on rather a long time. If my feelings fit the experience I'm having, so the experience I'm having now is sharing experience, strength and hope, and posting it out there on the internet. I hope it helps somebody. So the truth of now is I've put something out there, and if it's useful, it's useful. If it's not useful, it will be forgotten. Simple as that. But I don't have to hold on to it and say this is my point of view and you ought to believe me. I don't say that at all. What I say is this is what I'm learning. The truth of now, for me, is spiritual. God is truth, love and wisdom. And when step 3 talks about let go and let God, why not let go, let the world in, and see how we can go along interdependently, where we're the equal to other people. And it doesn't matter what status or rank they have in society. If we treat people equal, it's more likely that they will treat us back the same way. And if they don't, then we have freedom of choice, either to carry on beating ourselves up against a brick wall, or we move on and find pastures new. And that can be very difficult, but if we gain the ability to change today, we can change at any moment, and we are not then anchored or slaves to what we think we ought to do. So sometimes we do change in our personal life, our work life, or whatever, as life affords. It's not up yours and I'm off. More often than not, it's a good conversation of understanding. So it's difficult and it takes time. And time is our friend, as long as we're not impatient or we get angry and resentful. So sometimes we expect too much, and each morning I say to myself, I'll set my expectations to 0, and if something good happens, or something happens which makes me more able to deal and cope with life, then spiritual has worked, because I'm not stuck wondering what to do. So there we go. March 7th. Yeah. So at the end of this, and there'll be a couple of other videos from other years, I always say the Serenity Prayer to God of good conscience, because it helps me focus on now. It's the can do, can't do today. So if I want serenity, the Serenity Prayer is this: to God of good conscience. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change. Immovable objects, change people, places, things. I can't change those, but I can change. Courage to change the things I can. My attitude, my behaviour, seeing the freedom I have around how life is today, so I can then open the door to new choices. And the wisdom to know the difference, the final line, the wisdom to know the difference often comes from other people, or just talking it through with family, friends, fellowship, whatever works. Fellowship is not the only source in all of this, but it sure helps me find the right people to talk to, inside and out, professional, medical, personal, all that stuff. And faith is contingent on our spiritual condition, the ability to cope with now. It's all about recovery from either addiction to substance or behaviour, or in my case, both. My addictive substance, alcohol, my behaviour, equally addictive, work, relationships, collecting, materialism, you name it. If it had an advert, I would buy it. Well, if I had the money. So, yes, how did I ever become an addict? And what is being an addict? Well, an addict is someone who cannot stop doing something, and it's insane. It's the problem, or the definition of insanity. It's doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. So, when I took my first drink, it took the edge off, made me feel convivial, happy and joyful. And I was horribly young. I was about 7 or 8. But it didn't make me into an alcoholic straight away. Or did it? I don't know. It doesn't matter. I probably had a predisposition to try to fix myself in some way from a very early age because I was fearful. What was I fearful of? Life. Just life in general. So these days I try not to be so fearful of life in general on a daily basis. And today it's all about willingness to change, really, for me. I was looking up some quotes, and there's some literature I want to quote from a bit later. It's all about willingness to change, to be more open, honest and willing to change my attitude and behaviour on a daily basis. So addiction, 35 years easily of being addicted to fear primarily, and trying to take the edge off it or trying to fix it. So I don't know which is which, really, the fear as the addiction or the way I try to fix it. Probably both. It's all mixed up together, and although we can separate out all the different bits, like fear, putting on a brave face, covering everything up with ego, trying to look right, trying to be perfect, striving to be perfect, and setting such high standards for myself, it gave me a good excuse to fall back on drink. Or work, or relationships, people, places and things, you name it, I try to fix it, or me, with it. I don't do that anymore, at least I hope not, and certainly not to the same extent. So I know I need a little bit of fear in my life to keep me safe. I need a bit of a brave face when things are tough. I need a tiny bit of ego when things aren't going my way, just to spike me up a bit, but not enough to become obsessive. So I can find on a daily basis my courage, faith and confidence to face the day. Sorry that my noise is off. Anyway, all about recovery, my videos, and what helps me keep sober one day at a time. Mainly, it's about making the right choice on a daily basis, and what helps me most in that is being a part of life again, family, community, society, and a fellowship which keeps me on track on a daily basis, and that fellowship is AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, and I share the AA preamble here, the statement of intent about what AA can and cannot do, and how it impacts on my life, and one or two readings from one of the books of literature called Daily Reflections, and anything else that seems appropriate or pertinent, and in this case about willingness. So the AA statement of intent reads like this: Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength and hope with each other, that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organisation or institution, does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. So in there, most relevant to me always on a daily basis is the only requirement for going to AA, simply a desire, nothing else, just a desire to stop drinking and to share a message of experience, strength and hope with others who would prefer to be in recovery rather than struggling in the addiction. So what's the difference from being a struggling not in recovery alcoholic to being in recovery and not struggling most of the time. But sometimes we do struggle, because life is like that. You know, life doesn't change and suddenly become wonderful all the time. It has its ups and downs. So the happy road of destiny that we all trudge has potholes and puddles in it, just like anybody else experiences. But it's how we change our attitude and behaviour on a daily basis to seeing things as catastrophic and a good excuse for a drink, or to fix ourselves with something else, people, places or things, or to be a part of life, to be included and say, this is part of life, you know, the hardship bit. And I'm experiencing quite a lot of pain at the moment because of the fractures in my foot, and I've just been out because it's beautifully sunny. It's a beautiful spring morning, or almost spring morning, and I needed some food, so it was a good excuse to put my metal boot on to protect the fractures in my leg, or in my foot rather. But it hasn't been that successful. The pain is immense, and I didn't follow advice and take the prescription for painkillers. So that's my fault. That we ought to take medicine when it's suggested, not to excess, but to the levels that are on the packet, if I had one. Anyway, I shall sort that out tomorrow, and I shall be very careful today. Daily reflections for today in this book, all about recovery, one from AA, and in this book it covers the 12 steps of action to change our attitude and behaviour, and those 12 steps are about living the 12 steps, not learning them, passing an exam and then thinking they're over. They're about living to the principles of those 12 steps. And the third step, which is this one's got March, all about the third step, reads exactly as made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood him. And you know, it's your understanding of God or a higher power, something which can be informing you on a daily basis of the better choice to make to sobriety and living. So whatever it is that is your higher power, be it AA, your doctor, your religion, whatever it happens to be, or simply the fellowship which has all the wisdom needed to stay sober, it's what works for you in your daily life. So I like the idea, and I enjoy understanding God is truth, the truth that I am always looking for, or living the truth of now. God is love, God works through people, and my goodness, does God work through people in fellowship who have more experience, strength and hope than I would ever wish for. Anyway, for March 7th in this book, the key is willingness. Once we have placed the key of willingness in the lock and have the door ever so slightly open, we find that we can always open it some more, and this is about higher power. The willingness to give up my pride and self-will to a higher power greater than myself has proved to be the only ingredient absolutely necessary to solve all of my problems today. So in other words, when I was running on self-will, run riot, self-obsessed and extremely unable in the illness of addiction to do anything but follow my own guide, I was isolated and could not get out of self-will. Now I've gone the other way. I've gone to listening to other people, understanding there is more wisdom out there than I can ever accumulate or absorb about being sober and living life. And if you hear those glasses going in the background, that's my next door neighbour, the restaurant, checking out the empties from lunchtime. Anyway, it says, even the smallest amount of willingness, if sincere, is sufficient to allow God to enter and take control over any problem, pain or obsession. My level of comfort is in direct relation to the degree of willingness I possess at any given moment to give up my self-will and allow God's will, or the wisdom of other people, to be manifested in my life. With the key of willingness, my worries and fears are powerfully transformed. Just hear those bottles going, transformed into serenity. And even though you hear the bottles, I don't normally hear them. So the gift for me in all of this is I'm learning what I can and cannot do on a daily basis. And that serenity prayer to God or good conscience or a higher power of your understanding. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference is learning it just for today. to do the AA daily readings for tomorrow very shortly. AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength and hope with each other, that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organisation or institution, does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. And yes, good evening, and it's good to be home. And it's good to have been out for a cup of tea with my sponsor this evening after the meeting down at Radnor Walk. And my sponsor was doing the chair, and it was all about tradition 2, which is, if I just share that with you, 2. For our group purpose there is but one ultimate authority, a loving God, as he may express himself in our group conscience. Our leaders are but trusted servants, they do not govern. And I know when I first came into AA I thought it was full of leaders and people in the hierarchy, and I couldn't understand why nobody seemed to be telling anybody else what to do. And the simple answer is that nobody tells anybody in AA what to do. We work together to make the group work for us. And it's not like any other organisation. And when it says the leaders are trusted servants, that's exactly what they are. They are there to give guidance and to offer their wisdom of the years. And I'm lucky because my sponsor has 31 years of sobriety. But as he says, it's not the length of sobriety you've got, it's how far away you are from the next drink. So a bit like me, he is a very active participant in the programme of AA. And I go every day if I can. Sometimes I go twice. And today I went twice. So I went to Radnor Walk tonight, and then earlier in the day I went to St Jude's and heard the Step 1 chair, which is all about being powerless over alcohol, and life is unmanageable when we drink. So part of the early traditions and part of the early steps has been my sort of thinking and understanding the place, if you like, in terms of absorbing stuff from my fellows in AA. And it's always good to hear there are newcomers in the room, and as my sponsor said, newcomers are the lifeblood of AA. They keep coming back as we do. And as a fellowship which is growing all the time, as people realise they're overwhelmed with drink, it's a good thing. And I feel okay today. I've had to do some other chores around filling in documents for the Department of Work and Pensions, which I fill them in honestly. At the same time, I don't like doing it because I have to admit exactly what my medical situation is and where I am with diabetes, depression, neuropathy, retinopathy, any other opathy I happen to have, and it can be disconcerting. So I have to focus on the negative rather than on the positive, which is I can get out to a meeting, I can be in good company, I can listen to fellows who have wisdom, not only about what it's like not to drink, but what it's like to live life as it is, in the real world of now. And as we learn in the programme, the fellowship is only as strong for one day as we are. Then we come to learn and understand that if we participate in AA, we then are more likely to be able to participate in life as well. And for me, it's about emotional, spiritual and physical well-being. And whilst I do rely on medical support and psychiatric support for my depression and diabetes, I rely very much on the programme of AA to keep me going one day at a time, so I may deal with the other two things and all the other complications that arise. So I'm lucky. I'm very lucky indeed to still be here, to have a roof over my head, and to be able to go out and just enjoy a cup of tea in the King's Road in a nice restaurant, and then come home and maybe make a video. Anyway, enough about me today for now. The Daily Reflections, written by AA people for AA people. And it says, March 7, the key is willingness. Once we have placed the key of willingness in the lock and have the door ever so slightly open, we find that we can always open it some more. 12 Steps and 12 Traditions, page 35. goes on to say, the willingness to give up my pride and self-will to a power greater than myself has proved to be the only ingredient absolutely necessary to solve all of my problems today. Even the smallest amount of willingness, if sincere, is sufficient to allow God to enter and take control over my problem, pain, or obsession. My level of comfort is in direct relation to the degree of willingness I possess at any given moment to give up my self-will and allow God's will to be manifested in my life. With the key of willingness, my worries and fears are powerfully transformed into security. And as I keep saying, for me, God is truth, or God is love, as my sponsor also says. And, you know, it's not me being self-obsessed, it's about me fitting in with what the world is about. Being the right size person, neither bigger nor smaller than anybody else, and just getting on with the day as amenably as I can, and with good heart, and being willing to help and be there for other people, and to share my experience, strength and hope as requested, or as the moment offers. So that's a little bit more. As Bill sees it, for tomorrow, I'm using page number 94 in All Our Affairs. The chief purpose of AA is sobriety. We all realise that without sobriety we have nothing. However, it is possible to expand this simple aim into a great deal of nonsense, so far as the individual member is concerned. Sometimes we hear him say, in effect, sobriety is my sole responsibility. After all, I'm a pretty fine chap. Except for my drinking, give me sobriety and I've got it made. As long as our friend clings to this comfortable alibi, he will make so little progress with his real-life problems and responsibilities that he stands in a fair way to get drunk again. This is why AA's 12-step urges that we practice these principles in all our affairs. We are not living just to be sober, we are living to learn, to serve and to love. And it's about this bridge to modern living that we're looking for. And we do it on a daily basis. We can't bank, as some people do say, I've put this amount of sobriety in the bank and then I'm going to be okay, when I can't get to meetings for the next few weeks because I'm either going on holiday or a business trip or whatever. What sensible people know is there is nothing in the bank when it comes to emotional, spiritual and physical well-being. It's in the moment of now, this ever-present moment of now, which is the connection to truth. And denials are so easy to make, and it's so easy to get off kilter, off beam very, very quickly if we don't follow our sobriety path. So, what am I saying? Yes, we can be overdrawn at the bank of sobriety very easily if we don't keep coming to meetings. And moving on to 24 hours a day, the little black book written by an AA person, published by Hazelden but not recognised by AA as a fellowship. It says for March 7, there are two important things we have to do if we want to get sober and stay sober. First, having admitted that we will help us before alcohol, we have to turn our alcoholic problem over to God and trust him to take care of it for us. Well, for me, God is truth. So this means asking him every morning for the strength to stay sober that day and thanking him every night. It means really leaving the problem in God's hands and not reaching out and taking the problem back to ourselves. Second, having given our drink problem to God, we must cooperate with him by doing something about it ourselves. Am I doing these two things? Well, I do hand it over to the truth, the absolute truth of the day, rather than my truth, which could be quite elaborate and conniving and manipulative, so that I want to get my own way and do things as I choose. But what I find is, if I actually realise my right size, the possibilities, where I fit and where I don't fit, and that I am the equal of making good choices just gently in the moment, then life goes a lot more smoothly. And it's not me influencing others to my point of view particularly. It's understanding what my point of view is and the choices I may make on a daily basis. So overall it's been an okay day. I've not enjoyed doing these forms because it drags me back into past and present medical situations which I have no control over. Still, at least I'm still alive for now.